Chapter 1. Birth of a New Power. The night enveloped Konoha in gloomy silence. Only the crackling of fires and the echo of occasional screams broke the calm. But that night the village was on the verge of destruction. Shadows were visible on the horizon, huge, restless, threatening. Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, stood in the center of the ritual circle. His gaze was focused on the ancient symbols, which began to glow blood red. He knew that the success of this ritual was Konoha's only hope. Behind him, surrounded by Anbiyu, Kushina Uzumaki held their newborn son in her arms. Her face was tormented by pain, but her eyes burned with determination. "This is our only chance, Kushina," Minato's voice was firm. "If we don't seal the Jubi, the world will fall." She squeezed the child tighter. The baby slept, not realizing that his fate was already predetermined. "Why him?" Kushina asked in a whisper, her voice trembling. "Why does Naruto have to bear this burden?" The answer was obvious, but Minato still hesitated. "His blood, Kushina. You are Uzumaki. I am Hokage. He's stronger than you think." A rumble was heard far in the forest. The ground shook, as if warning of the approach of something ancient. The giant silhouette of the Yubi appeared on the horizon. His eyes burned with rage, and every step was filled with destruction. Minato knew he couldn't waste a second. He quickly began to weave seals, his hands moving at incredible speed. Kushina, feeling that her strength was running out, channeled her remaining chakra to strengthen the barrier holding back the Yubi. When the monster approached, its roar was like a hurricane that destroyed everything in its path. It rushed forward, but stopped when it hit the barrier. Jubi fought, growled, his paws tore the ground. But Minato and Kushina did not give up. "The time has come," Minato shouted. "Kushina, get ready!" He picked Naruto up, his heart breaking. This was their son, their hope. But now he became the bearer of ancient evil. "Forgive us, Naruto," Kushina whispered, her tears running down her cheeks. "We believe that you can handle it." The seals glowed, creating a pillar of light that illuminated the entire village. The Jubi howled as its body began to shrink, turning into streams of energy. They moved towards the baby, who suddenly opened his eyes. Naruto's eyes shone with an unnatural light, reflecting the power that was consuming his small body. "What is this?" Minato froze when he saw strange patterns flash inside the child's eyes. But he continued. The seal completed and the Jubi disappeared, trapped in the child's body. Kushina weakened and fell to her knees. Minato held on with his last strength. Their mission was complete, but the cost was too great. Minato fell next to his wife, his breathing ragged. His last words were a message to his son. "Naruto, you will save or destroy the world." When the light dissipated, the village fell silent. The night enveloped Konoha again, but now in its center, in the hands of the Anbu, lay a baby in which an ancient evil slumbered. Chapter 2. Damnation and Hope. The morning that replaced the gloomy night brought not relief, but horror. The people of Konoha woke up in ruins. Destroyed houses, charred trees, the smell of smoke, everything reminded of the monster that had fallen on the village, but now it has disappeared. Crowds began to flock to the center of the village, where they were met by the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. His face was clouded with sadness. He already knew about Minato and Kushina's sacrifice. In his arms was a child, little Naruto, wrapped in a soft blanket. "The Jubi is sealed," Hiruzen stated, his voice sounding firm despite the storm raging in his heart. "The fourth Hokage and his wife sacrificed themselves for our village. Their son now bears this burden." The third's words did not meet with understanding. Whispers began to spread through the crowd like wildfire. "This child. Is there a monster sealed inside of him? It's dangerous. How can we trust him? He's a threat to all of us." Hiruzen raised his hand for silence. His voice became stern. "Naruto is not a monster. He is a hero, the legacy of the fourth. We will protect him as we protected the village." However, his words could not calm the fear. For most, Naruto became not a savior but the embodiment of a threat. Their glances, full of hatred and suspicion, were directed at the child who knew nothing of his burden. Years have passed. Naruto grew up lonely. He was 7 years old, but he already knew what it meant to be a stranger. People avoided him, children did not play with him, adults averted their eyes. Behind him he heard whispers. "It's that boy. There's a monster inside him." But Naruto didn't give up. He wore a smile that hid his pain. Even on the darkest days he found the strength to rise. The only one who did not turn away from him was the third Hokage. Hiruzen often visited the boy, bringing him food or books, and teaching him the history of the village. However, Naruto felt that there was something more inside of him. A voice, quiet but deep, sometimes whispered to him, "You are stronger than they think. We can show them." At first the boy was afraid of this voice, But over the years, he got used to it. The Jubi, the ancient demon contained within him, was not his enemy. On the contrary, he became something of a friend. "Who are you?" Naruto asked one day while sitting on the bed in his room. "I am Jubi," answered the voice. "The one they fear, but I'm not your enemy, boy. I'm here to help you." Naruto didn't know whether to believe him, but he felt strangely calm. The Jubi didn't try to harm him. On the contrary, he talked about chakra, taught him how to control this power. Every year Naruto became stronger, although he hid it from the others. Friendship sealed in solitude. By the time he was 7 years old, Naruto and the Ten Tails had become inseparable. Jubi not only taught the boy, but also helped him cope with loneliness. They spent long hours discussing techniques, strategies, ways to use chakra. "You must learn to hide your strength," Jubi instructed. "They are not ready to find out the truth." Naruto nodded. He understood that if he showed what he was capable of, the village would completely turn away from him. He pretended to be weak so as not to arouse suspicion, but confidence grew inside him. He knew that the day would come when he would show everyone what he was capable of. Chapter 3: Phantom Anxiety. The evening sky over Konoha was tinged with orange and red. The sun slowly dropped below the horizon, turning the forest into the shadows of a mysterious world. Naruto sat on a high rock, hugging his knees, and silently watched this spectacle. The wind played with his blonde hair, but the boy's thoughts were soaring far from here. He felt strangely uneasy. It came out of nowhere, like a sudden chill running down my spine. My heart beat faster as if anticipating something important. This feeling became stronger when Yubi's voice was heard inside his head. It was deeper, louder than usual. "Naruto, can you feel it?" Jubi asked, his words echoing in the boy's mind. "I feel it," Naruto replied, frowning. "But what is this? Why am I so tense?" "This is a call," Jubi continued. "Your chakra, our chakra. She awakens something ancient." Naruto became wary. He was used to Jubi's instructions, but this was the first time he had heard such words. "What wakes you up?" he asked. "And why now?" Jubi didn't answer right away. There was silence in Naruto's head for a few seconds until the demon spoke again. "You and I are more than just a vessel and a sealed being. Our powers go beyond what the world can understand. And now, someone or something has noticed." Naruto clenched his fists as he felt his chakra begin to fluctuate. It was an unpleasant sensation, as if someone invisible was pulling the invisible threads inside his body. Who noticed? He had difficulty remaining calm. "I don't know yet," Yubi said quietly. "But be prepared, this is just the beginning." Unpredictable invasion. The next day, the strange sensation did not disappear. Naruto tried to distract himself by training at a remote training ground. He practiced his basic techniques, throwing kunai, controlling chakra, and learning new combinations of moves. But with every throw, with every step, he felt his heart remain restless. By evening, Naruto decided to go deeper into the forest. He often found solace there, away from the prying eyes of the villagers. There, among the trees, he could be himself without fear of anyone seeing him talking to Yubi. "Tell me what you know," Naruto demanded when he was far enough from the village. "All I know is that something strong is coming," Jubi answered. "Something that sensed us." Naruto began to think, but his thoughts were interrupted by a sudden sound. The crunch of a branch. He turned around. The forest seemed silent, but he knew that this silence was deceptive. Suddenly, a figure jumped out of the shadows. A man in a dark robe and mask, not from Konoha. His movements were fast and precise. He pointed a kunai at Naruto, but the boy managed to dodge. Adrenaline instantly filled his body. "Who are you?" Naruto shouted, taking a defensive stance. "The carrier," muttered the stranger. His voice was cold. "Bearer of the Jubi." Naruto froze. He didn't expect anyone to find out about his secret. The Jubi stirred inside him, his voice becoming more intense. "Don't give him time, Naruto. He came for us. Take action." First test of strength. Naruto rushed forward like lightning, his kunai flashing in his hands. The stranger dodged with frightening ease, as if he had anticipated his every move. The seconds turned into a protracted battle in which Naruto realized that his opponent was no ordinary ninja. "You don't understand what you're playing with, boy," said the stranger, putting his hands in front of him and starting to make seals. Naruto didn't wait for the technique to complete. He gathered chakra in his palms and threw it in an impromptu wave. The explosion blew away nearby trees, and the stranger was forced to dodge. But he quickly recovered, and a strange sphere filled with dark energy appeared in his hands. "This is just the beginning, host," he said before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Naruto was left alone, breathing heavily. His hands were shaking, but he could not understand why, from fear, from rage, or from excitement. Jubi broke the silence. "They came for our power, Naruto. You must become stronger. It was a warning." Chapter 4: Trials on the Path to Strength. The next day, Naruto woke up earlier than usual. Jubi's words from the day before echoed in his head. The stranger who attacked him disappeared as quickly as he had appeared, but his presence left something more, a feeling of threat that he could not ignore. Jubi, Naruto said, looking into the mirror. His gaze was focused, almost adult. I must become stronger. What do I need to do? The Jubi seemed to smile, although his voice sounded serious. Strength is not just the amount of chakra or speed. This is knowledge, understanding of your abilities. If you want to be prepared for what's to come, you must master your chakra like no one has ever done before. How can I do this? Naruto was determined. Enter your consciousness, said Jubi. I'll show you something that other Jinchuriki have never seen. Inside the Jubi world, Naruto closed his eyes and concentrated. The feeling of drowning in his own mind was strange, but he was already used to these meditations. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a boundless space where everything seemed illusory. In front of him, huge and majestic, stood the Jubi. His gaze was directed at the boy. Are you ready? Asked the demon. Ready, Naruto answered firmly. Then let's begin. The Jubi raised its massive paw and spheres of chakra began to appear around Naruto, spinning in a chaotic pattern. This is your power, Naruto. She is wild and restless. To become strong, you must learn to control it. Find harmony. Naruto tried to approach the spheres, but they flew away as if avoiding him. He frowned, holding out his hands again and again, but nothing worked. You're trying to force yourself, Jubi said. But strength is not always brute power. You must understand its nature. Naruto thought about it. He sat down on the ground and closed his eyes, letting go of the tension. Gradually, he began to feel the chakra inside him come to life, responding to his emotions. The spheres began to slow down as they approached him. Okay, Jubi approved. You begin to understand. New technology. Several days passed. Naruto trained with the Jubi, learning the nature of chakra and its intricacies. At one point, he realized that he could create a technique that he had never seen in any shinobi. Jubi, what if I combine your power with mine? Naruto asked, his eyes shining with determination. It's dangerous, the demon answered. If you lose control, you can destroy everything around you. But it's possible. Naruto started experimenting. He created tiny vortexes of chakra, combining them with the dense energy provided by the Jubi. The technique was unstable, but he got better every time. Soon he managed to create a technique that he called Rasen Void Blade. It was a concentrated chakra vortex capable of cutting through any defense, but he knew that the technique was not yet complete. Unforeseen test. During one of his training sessions, Naruto suddenly felt the ground beneath him shake. A man emerged from the forest wearing the same robe as the stranger who had attacked him earlier, but this time he was not alone. There were two more standing next to him, and their chakra was ominous. Bearer of the Jubi, one of them said, his voice icy. You have remained in the shadows for too long. Naruto stood up, his hands clenched into fists. He felt the Jubi stir within him. It's them, said the demon. They came for our strength. Don't let them take her. Naruto rushed into battle. His movements were fast and his strikes were precise, but his enemies were stronger than he expected. Their techniques were synchronized, and they knew how to fight an opponent like him. You're not strong enough, boy, one of the enemies said, creating a powerful chakra whirlwind. But Naruto didn't give up. He activated Rasen Void Blade and aimed it straight at his opponent. The explosion was deafening, and the enemies retreated, but not for long. We'll be back, said one of them, disappearing into the smoke. You're not ready yet. Chapter 5. The Coming Storm. Naruto stood on a rock, watching the gathering clouds. The wind played with his hair, but his thoughts were focused on the recent battle. The strangers who appeared in the forest were only harbingers of something greater. He felt it with his entire being. Jubi, he turned to the demon, whose chakra was still agitated within him. Who are they? Why are they hunting us? Jubi, usually confident and calm, was silent for a moment this time. They came from the past, boy, he finally answered. Those who once tried to control me. They called themselves the Guardians of the Abyss. Their goal has always been the same, to use my power for their own purposes. But now they see you as a threat. You are not just a carrier. You become my ally. Guardians of the Abyss, Naruto repeated, clenching his fists. So they won't stop until they destroy me? They won't destroy it. Submit. And if they can't, they will try to tear me out of your body. Naruto frowned. He couldn't let them have their way. At that moment, he made a decision. If they were going to come for him, he would be ready. Training under pressure. Naruto spent the next few weeks training. He knew that in order to defeat enemies capable of using such powerful chakra, he would need to level up. Jubi became his mentor, a teacher who did not give him a moment's respite. Your strength is enormous, but it is unstable, the demon said, watching Naruto concentrate on controlling his chakra. You must learn to use it so that it is an extension of you, and not vice versa. One of the first techniques they worked on was creating a protective barrier of chakra. This barrier was supposed to not only repel attacks, but also absorb their energy, turning it into Naruto's power. But control over such complex technology turned out to be difficult. Each attempt resulted in powerful releases of chakra that destroyed trees in the area. But Naruto didn't give up. He stood up again and again, feeling his body adapt to the strain. "One more time," he said, breathing heavily after another failure. "You're stubborn, boy," Jubi muttered, but there was a hint of respect in his voice. Meeting with the third Hokage. One day, returning to the village after another training session, Naruto was summoned to the Hokage residence. Hiruzen Sarutobi was waiting for him in his office. His face was concentrated, but there was anxiety in his eyes. "Naruto," he began, looking at the boy over his glasses. "Do you know that unknown ninjas have been appearing in the forest lately?" Naruto nodded, but decided not to reveal all the details. "I heard about them," he answered evasively. "They are strong," Hiruzen continued, "and I know that you have encountered them. You have to be careful. These people are not just hunters. They are associated with ancient forces." "I'm ready for them," Naruto said firmly. "If they come back, I will stop them." Hiruzen fell silent, assessing the boy. There was a confidence in his words that was uncharacteristic of a 7-year-old child. He knew Naruto was hiding more than he was saying. "Take care of yourself," said the third finally. "And remember, you are not alone." First serious threat. One night, as Naruto returned to training in the forest, he felt the air around him become thick. 3 people emerged from the shadows, the same ninjas that attacked him earlier. But now their chakra seemed even stronger. "We warned you," said one of them. "You can't ignore us. Give up the Jubi and we'll let you live." "Never!" Naruto shouted as his chakra flared around him, forming a protective barrier. The fight began with a furious exchange of blows. Naruto used all the techniques he had learned, but his opponents were organized. Their attacks came one after another, giving him no respite. "Jubi, I need your help!" he shouted. "Use the technique that we trained," the demon answered. "Now or never." Naruto activated Rasen Void Blade, but this time he added barrier chakra to it to stabilize the technique. The result was stunning. When the blade hit one of the enemies, his barrier disintegrated, and he himself was thrown back tens of meters. The other 2 froze when they saw this. Their leader frowned before signaling a retreat. "You are stronger than we expected," he said, "but we will be back. You can't defeat us alone." Chapter 6. Conversation in the Shadows. After a long day of training, Naruto returned to the village. His body ached, and his stomach growled demandingly. He walked through the dark streets of Konoha, heading towards his small room, dreaming of a hot dinner and a soft bed. But something made him stop. Voices were heard somewhere nearby. They sounded quietly, but with tension. Naruto froze, leaning against the wall of the building to listen. "I'm telling you, he's dangerous," said the first voice, which belonged to an adult man. "It's only a matter of time before it gets out of control. We know what's inside it." "But what can we do?" objected the second voice. The third Hokage made it clear that Naruto was under his protection. The first voice lowered its tone, but its words sounded sharper. "This is not forever. If we make him leave the village, everyone will feel better. Without him, we will have a chance to live in peace." The words echoed in Naruto's head. He felt something pinching inside him. The people he protected, the people he considered family, wanted him gone. They wanted to get rid of him. Jubi, who had been silent until then, spoke. His voice was calm, but with a hint of warning. "It's not the first time they've talked about you like that, boy. And not the last. You must decide what you will do." The decision to leave. Naruto stood in the dark, his heart heavy. He knew that the village had always been wary of him. He saw looks full of fear and hatred. But until now, he hoped that with time he could change their minds. These words spoken by the men destroyed that hope. He realized that no matter how hard he tried, some people would never accept him. "Jubi," he said quietly, walking away from the building. "You were right. I need to leave. If I stay, it will only cause more problems." "Smart decision," Jubi replied. "But you shouldn't go away weak. Leave to become stronger, to come back one day and prove them wrong." Naruto nodded. He knew that the path he was about to take would be difficult, but this was his path. Farewell to the village. The next morning, Naruto packed his things, a few kunai, some food, and everything that could be useful on the road. He looked around his room, at the little things that were part of his life here, and felt mixed feelings. Before leaving, he headed towards the Hokage's residence. There he left a short letter addressed to the third. "Hokage-sama, I'm leaving. Don't worry about me. I'll come back when I'm stronger." He left the letter on the table and went out into the quiet dawn. The entire village was asleep, and no one saw the boy with a determined look disappear outside the gates of Konoha. The beginning of the journey, Naruto walked through the forest, his thoughts focused on one thing: He must find a way to become stronger. As he left the village, he felt a new fire flare up inside him. It was not just a desire to prove something to the village. It was a desire to understand myself, my strength, and my place in this world. What now? He asked, looking ahead. We are looking for answers, Jubi replied, and we will find them. Chapter 7. The Hunt Begins. On the border of the Land of Fire among the ancient forests, a group of people in black robes with red clouds was hiding. Their presence filled the air with an unsettling energy. They stood on the edge of the cliff, their gaze directed towards the east, where Konoha was located. He moved, said the first, a tall man with a stern face and bright green eyes. His voice was cold and calm, but there was a hidden threat in it. So the boy has made a decision, answered the second, whose figure was hidden under the hood. The only question is how long he can last alone. The third of them, a man with a massive sword on his back, grinned. We shouldn't underestimate him, he said. Naruto is not just a child. There is a power hidden within it that we barely understand. That's why we can't wait, said the first. If he gets stronger, it will make our task more difficult. We must act now. The group nodded and they disappeared, seemingly vanishing into thin air. Their goal was clear. Naruto Uzumaki, bearer of the Jubi. First difficulties on the way. Naruto walked along winding paths, surrounded by dense trees. The forest was quiet, but the silence was deceptive. Every step echoed, and every crunch of a branch made him wary. He knew that the world outside the village was even more dangerous. Jubi, he began, making his way through the dense vegetation. I feel like I'm being watched. Do you feel it too? Without a doubt, answered the demon. They have already started hunting. The only question is when they will attack. Naruto stopped in a clearing and looked around. His instincts told him that danger was near. Do you think they are from the village? He asked. No, Jubi answered. These are others, those who hunt me. Naruto realized this wasn't just a random concern. He was a target, and if he wanted to survive, he needed to be prepared. First meeting with the enemy. At night, when the moon illuminated the forest with its soft light, Naruto heard a rustling in the bushes. He instantly rose to his feet, his gaze darting around the shadows of the trees. A man in a black robe with red clouds emerged from the darkness. So you really have left Konoha, he said, his voice deep and mocking. You made our task much easier, boy. Who are you? Naruto took a fighting stance, his kunai flashing in the moonlight. The one who came for you, answered the stranger, folding the seals. In the blink of an eye, a strong wind rose all around. The leaves began to swirl, and the air was filled with thick chakra. Naruto felt the Jubi's power awaken within him. Be careful, the demon warned. He's not just a shinobi. The battle has begun. The stranger rushed at Naruto, attacking with incredible speed. Naruto barely had time to dodge, his heart pounding and his hands gripping the kunai tightly. He knew that this enemy was much stronger than those he had fought before. You don't understand what you're dealing with, said the stranger, his attacks becoming faster and more powerful. Naruto knew he couldn't stay on the defensive for long. He concentrated, calling upon the Yubi's chakra. His body was enveloped in a glow, and he launched a counterattack. Their impacts collided, creating flashes of light. Chapter 8. Loneliness of Power. The forest around was in chaos. Fallen trees, craters from chakra explosions, and charred earth all testified to the battle that nearly destroyed this place. Naruto stood in the center of the devastation, breathing heavily, his hands shaking. The stranger disappeared, leaving behind only anxiety and uncertainty. He was just playing with you, Jubi said dryly. Do you understand this? Naruto clenched his fists, his gaze staring into space. It was true. The stranger clearly did not give it his all, and this only increased the fear. I know, Naruto replied, his voice sounding hoarse. But he will return, and next time I'll be ready. You are too soft, boy, Jubi continued. We need to respond to our enemies using their own methods. You won't win if you hold back. Naruto remained silent. He didn't like the way Jubi's words sounded, but he knew the demon was right. His strength must be absolute if he is to survive. New challenges. Leaving the ruined forest, Naruto headed further west. The forest became thicker and the air colder, but this did not stop him. He knew that the path to strength lies through difficulties. Jubi, he said, walking through the dense thicket. How can I become stronger? Simply training is not enough. I need something more. Strength comes with experience, answered the demon. You must face challenges that will force you to grow. You have to take risks, Naruto. Risk what? The boy frowned. Everyone, Yubi answered briefly. These words echoed heavily in Naruto's mind. He realized that now his path was not just about training. It was a journey of struggle, pain, and acceptance of who he was becoming. Meeting with a mentor. A few days later, when Naruto reached the mountain paths, he met a strange man. He was a tall man in shabby clothes, with long gray hair and a sword on his back. His eyes looked at Naruto with curiosity. "Are you from Konoha?" he asked, leaning against the rock. "What do you want?" Naruto answered warily, grabbing a kunai. The man laughed. "Relax, boy, I'm not your enemy. Although, who knows how fate will turn out." Naruto frowned, but something about the man made him stay. The man introduced himself as Kagan, a former shinobi who left everything behind to live in solitude. But it turned out to be not so simple. His skills with chakra were amazing. "You look like you're looking for someone or something," Kagan remarked as he watched Naruto. "I'm looking for strength," the boy answered honestly. "Strength then?" The man grinned. "Then you've come to the right place. Training in the mountains." Under Kagan's guidance, Naruto began to learn new techniques. These were not just martial arts techniques, but a deep understanding of chakra and its nature. He learned to see chakra in the world around him, feel its flows, and use them for his own purposes. "Strength is not just power," Kagan explained. "True strength lies in understanding how everything is connected. Chakra is part of the world. Realize this and you will become who you want to be." Naruto meditated on the top of the mountain, watching the sunrise. In these moments, he felt his connection with the Yubi and himself become stronger. Chapter 9. Shadow in the Mountains. The air, which a minute ago had been fresh and cold, suddenly became heavy. The chakra that filled the space around was ominous, as if nature itself was retreating before its power. Kagan, who was sitting next to Naruto, slowly stood up, his gaze directed to the horizon line. "They're getting closer," he repeated. "These people are dangerous." Naruto jumped to his feet, his eyes darting around the surrounding forest. He felt it too. Chakra like this did not belong to ordinary shinobi. "Who could it be?" he asked, preparing a kunai. "Perhaps those who have been watching you from the very beginning," said Kagan. "Or someone who came for me. Either way, they won't leave us alone." Kagan looked at Naruto, and something resembling respect flashed in his eyes. "This will be your first real test," he said. "Show me what you are capable of." Meeting the enemy? Soon figures appeared from the shadows of the forest. There were 3 of them, and they were all dressed in black robes with red clouds. Their faces were hidden by masks, but the chakra emanating from them was so powerful that Naruto could barely breathe. "Naruto Uzumaki," said one of them, a tall man with a voice like an icy wind. "You made us look for you." "Are you looking for me?" Naruto got into a fighting stance. "Then why come in 3? Are you afraid that you won't be able to cope?" The man laughed, but there was no joy in his laughter. "We didn't come to pick you up," he said. "And in order to test you, see if you deserve to be our opponent." Kagan stepped forward, standing next to Naruto. "You're not alone here, boy," he said. "Remember this. Battle at the top." The first of the 3 attacked without warning, his movements as fast as a flash of lightning. Naruto barely had time to dodge as a powerful blow shattered the ground where he had been standing a second ago. Kagan did not stand aside. His sword flared with chakra, and he rushed into battle, blocking the attack of the second enemy. Their collision was like the collision of 2 mountains. The third enemy, watching the battle, folded his hands in a seal. Dark energy began to build in the air, forming a huge being made of pure chakra. "Naruto!" Kagan shouted, parrying the blow. "It's yours. Prove that you can handle it." Naruto gathered chakra in his hands as his body was enveloped in a glow. He summoned Rasen Voidblade, adding to it the energy that he learned to control through training with the Yubi. His attack collided with the chakra monster, creating a powerful explosion that blew away nearby trees. Result of the battle. When the dust settled, one of the enemies was on his knees, breathing heavily. The second disappeared, and the third, the leader of the group, looked at Naruto with an incomprehensible expression. "You're getting stronger, boy," he said, removing his mask. His face was covered with scars, and his eyes glowed with a strange light. "But you're not ready yet." With that, he vanished into thin air, leaving Naruto and Kagan in the ruined landscape. Chapter 10. Truth in the Shadows. Several days have passed since the battle in the mountains. Naruto and Kagan were in the shelter, recovering their strength. Naruto couldn't get his last enemy's words out of his head. "You're getting stronger, boy, but you're not ready yet." What did they mean? Why were they hunting him? Questions haunted him, but the answer came unexpectedly. The unpleasant truth. One evening, Kagan returned from reconnaissance. His face was gloomy. "Naruto," he began, sitting down by the fire, "I learned something you should know." "What?" Naruto asked, his eyes narrowing. "These attacks, they are not random. They are set up by your village." Naruto froze as if a bolt of lightning had struck him. "What did you say?" His voice trembled with disbelief. "I found information," Kagan continued. "All these people who attacked you, they acted on orders from the elders of Konoha. This was their decision. They want to make sure that you either die or become completely subservient to them." Kagan's words echoed in Naruto's head. His hands trembled, his eyes flashed with anger. "They used me?" he croaked. "All this time?" The Jubi spoke in his mind, his voice calm but with a hint of pleasure. I told you, boy. They never accepted you. They only saw you as a tool or a threat. Why? Naruto clenched his fists as his chakra began to spiral out of control. Why did they do this? I thought that they were my family. Family? Yubi grinned. They never saw you as anything other than a carrier. It's time for you to open your eyes. Anger awakened strength. Naruto jumped up, his body enveloped in powerful chakra. The entire forest around began to tremble. Trees began to break under the pressure of his power. Kagan looked at the boy with concern but did not interfere. If this is true, Naruto said, his voice becoming low and menacing, then I will destroy them. Everyone. I will destroy Konoha. Calm down, Naruto, Kagan intervened. Your strength is great, but rash actions will only lead to your death. But Naruto didn't listen. His eyes burned with rage, and the Yubi's chakra was completely mixed with his own. He felt the power filling him, destroying all boundaries. Konoha betrayed me, he said. They will pay for it. The first step to destruction. The next day, Naruto left the hideout, leaving Kagan behind. He didn't want anyone to interfere with his plans. His path was clear. He was going to destroy Konoha. But for this, he needed more strength. The Jubi, observing his determination, spoke up. You finally understand, boy. But remember that true strength does not come only from anger. If you want to destroy Konoha, you must become more than human. I'm ready, Naruto replied. Show me what needs to be done. Chapter 11. Shadows Behind the Scenes. The elders of Konoha gathered in a dimly lit room hidden deep beneath the Hokage residence. Their faces were gloomy and their conversation tense. On the stone table in front of them were scrolls with information about Naruto Uzumaki. We've waited too long, Homura said, slamming his hand on the table. Naruto left the village and now we have lost control over him. We should have acted sooner, Koharu said, her voice cold. But the third Hokage always protected him, despite our warnings. Danzo Shimura, who was standing in the shadows, took a step forward. His voice was calm, but there was a sense of threat in it. I warned you that he would become a threat if we allowed him to develop. Now he is in the wild, free, and possibly against us. This is unacceptable. We can't let him come back, Homura said. But what if he does come back? We don't have the strength to deal with him if he decides to attack. Danzo chuckled, crossing his arms over his chest. We're ready. I have the resources and people who can stop him. If he appears, he will face a force that will surpass him. The elders looked at each other, but no one dared to object. They knew Danzo always had his own plans, but now they had no choice. Preparing to return, Danzo left the meeting, heading to his secret chambers. Here, in the depths of the village, he kept a force of root Anbu, trained to face the most dangerous enemies. He stood in front of a group of his subordinates, his gaze cold. Naruto Uzumaki has left the village, he said, but that doesn't mean we'll let him threaten us. When he returns, we must be ready. The Anbu nodded silently, their faces hidden by masks. They knew their task would not be easy, but there was no doubt about it. We will study his every technique, every movement, Danzo continued, and when he appears, we will destroy him before he harms Konoha. Naruto on a path of destruction. Far from Konoha, Naruto continued on his way. His anger was strong, but he knew that rage alone was not enough. Jubi, who was watching him, continued to instruct the boy. You must be a strategist, Naruto, the demon said. Konoha is strong not only physically. Her true strength lies in her connections with other villages. If you want to destroy her, you need to break these ties. How? Naruto asked, his gaze focused. Destroy trust, answered Jubi. Show other villages that Konoha can't even protect its own. Naruto nodded. He understood that to achieve his goal, he would have to use not only force, but also tactics. He began to develop a plan in which every action would be a blow to Konoha's reputation. Chapter 12. Konoha's True Guardian. The dark corridors, lined with rough stone, let in only the faint light of torches, casting long, disturbing shadows. Here, deep in the Anbu root base, Danzo Shimura gathered his most loyal people. He stood in front of a group of fighters whose faces were hidden by cold masks. When Naruto returns, he won't be facing a village, Danzo said, his voice echoing off the walls. He will face her true guardian. With us. His gaze glanced over the crowd. These people were not just shinobi, they were weapons, honed to accomplish any task. Their training was merciless and their loyalty to Danzo unconditional. The Uzumaki has become a threat to Konoha, he continued. We let him get too far. Now he will come back stronger than ever, and he will not return to protect the village. He will return to destroy her. The soldiers listened silently. Nobody asked any questions, no one hesitated. This was their purpose. Danzo's plans. Danzo turned to the huge map unfolded on the wall. It marked key positions of Konoha, as well as places where, according to him, Naruto could be hiding. Our task is simple, he said, pointing to one of the areas on the map. We must predict his actions. Naruto knows the village from the inside. He knows our weaknesses, but he doesn't know that we are ready. Danzo took a step back, looking around at his subordinates. We use everything we have, any means, any technique. If he crosses the line, we will respond. But I want him to feel his weakness before he even enters the village. We'll create a trap for him." One of the Anbu stepped forward. "Danzo-sama," he said, his voice muffled behind his mask. "What if it merges with other villages? This will make his threat even more serious." Danzo chuckled. "Other villages?" His voice became mocking. "Naruto will never be able to find allies there. He's too hot-tempered, too unstable. They will be afraid of him just as we are afraid of him. But if they try, we will destroy their trust. We will make them believe that Naruto is not only hunting Konoha, but also them." Route preparation. The Anbu team began to act. They developed plans for ambushes and trained in capturing and neutralizing opponents who outnumbered them. Danzo watched every step carefully. "We use his power against himself," he explained as he watched the training. "Naruto draws his power from anger. If we make him lose control, he will become vulnerable." The training included simulated battles against strong opponents that simulated Naruto's abilities. The Anbu studied his previous techniques, trying to predict how he would perform in battle. They were working on creating special seals that could suppress the tailed man's chakra if the battle reached a critical phase. Naruto and his wrath? Meanwhile, far from Konoha, Naruto was moving along an old mountain path. His thoughts were focused on one goal: to destroy the village that betrayed him. The Jubi who watched him spoke rarely, but his words were important. "You're angry, boy," he said, "but anger can be a weakness if you don't learn to control it." "I'm not weak," Naruto replied sharply. "Konoha must pay for what it did." "If you lose control, you will lose," the demon continued, "and your goal requires you to be stronger than ever." Naruto stopped, looking at the horizon. He knew Jubi was right. His anger was a weapon, but it could also be his curse. "Show me what I must do," he said. "I'm ready." New threat. Returning to his training, Naruto noticed a strange movement in the forest. He stopped, his instincts immediately heightened. "You are not alone," Yubi warned. 3 men in black robes came out from behind the trees. Their faces were hidden by masks, but the chakra emanating from them was familiar. These were root agents. "Uzumaki Naruto," one of them said, his voice sounding even. "We came to bring you back." "A return?" Naruto grinned, his eyes shining. "After everything you've done, I will only come back to destroy you." The battle has begun. The root Anbu fought with cold efficiency, but Naruto was no longer the boy they knew. His strength grew and his control over the Yubi's chakra became more and more perfect. Chapter 13. Shadow over Konoha. The forest, shrouded in the darkness of night, plunged into silence again. Only Naruto's heavy breathing broke the silence. In front of him, stretched out on the ground, lay an agent of the root. His mask was broken, revealing a frightened face. The remaining 2 Anbu managed to escape, leaving their comrade at Naruto's mercy. "Do you understand what you did?" Naruto leaned closer to the agent, his voice sounding quiet but threatening. "You thought you could stop me? Did you think I'd just accept it all?" The agent didn't answer. His gaze darted between Naruto's face and the glowing chakra enveloping the boy. "Tell it to your people," Naruto repeated, his voice getting louder. "I will return to Konoha, and when that happens, you'll regret ever pursuing me." He stood up, his eyes glowing scarlet, reflecting the power of the Jubi. The agent, gathering his remaining strength, teleported away, leaving Naruto alone. Naruto's determination. Naruto was left standing in the destroyed forest. His breathing gradually calmed down, but a hurricane of emotion still raged inside him. "They really think they can control me," he said, turning to Jubi. "People are always afraid of what they don't understand," answered the demon, "but you're above that now. You have proven your strength. Now it's time to show them what it means." Naruto thought about it. He knew that returning to Konoha had to be more than just an act of revenge. This must be the event that changes everything. But for this, he needed power that would leave them without a chance. "What's next?" he asked. "You know what to do," Jubi replied. "Find ancient knowledge. Find those who can give you the tools to win. The world is full of powers that you don't even know about. Search for strength." The next morning, Naruto set off. He left the forest behind, moving deeper into the mountains. The legends he had heard from Kagan spoke of hidden temples and ancient places of power that could give him an advantage. His first destination was Mount Myoboku, the place where the great Toad Sages lived. "Do you think they will help you?" Jubi asked as Naruto began to rise. "If not, I'll find another way," he replied, "but I won't stop." The climb was difficult. Narrow paths, steep cliffs, and cold winds made it a test not only of physical strength, but also of will. However, Naruto moved forward, step by step, until he finally reached the top, meeting with the sages. At the top of the mountain, he was met by toads. They were huge, with eyes full of wisdom and suspicion. The oldest of them, Fukasaku, looked at Naruto, his voice deep and calm. "You came here in search of power," he said. "But do you know at what price you can get it?" I'm willing to pay any price, Naruto replied. His gaze was determined. Konoha betrayed me. I must destroy her so she can never harm anyone again, Fukasaku thought as he looked at the boy. He saw that there was anger in his heart, but behind this anger there was something more hidden, pain and loneliness. You want revenge, he said, but revenge rarely brings what you seek. I'm not looking for consolation, Naruto countered. I'm looking for justice. Fukasaku nodded. Fine, then we will teach you, but remember, power without control will destroy you faster than your enemies. Myoboku training. Training began the next day. Naruto was learning to control his chakra on a whole new level. He studied the harmony between his power and nature, meditating to find balance. But the hardest thing was to contain the anger that was seething inside him. You must be like water, Fukasaku instructed him. Fluid, but powerful. If you fight driven only by anger, you will lose. Naruto knew that the old sage was right. His anger was his driving force, but it could also become his weakness, so he worked even harder to learn how to channel his emotions into power. New technology. After months of training, Naruto developed a new technique based on the synthesis of the Yubi's chakra and natural energy. He named it Rasen Void Storm. It was an incredibly powerful attack, capable of destroying an entire landscape, but its use required enormous concentration and control. When he first tested it, the entire mountain shook. Fukasaku watched this and his eyes widened in surprise. This is power, he said. But be careful. It can ruin you if you don't use it wisely. Chapter 14, Path to Destruction. The sun slowly rose above the horizon, flooding the world with golden light. Naruto stood on the edge of the cliff, his gaze directed forward. Mount Myoboku was left behind, but its lessons and training changed him forever. He felt a new strength in himself, a power that seemed to be able to tear apart space itself. Jubi, he said quietly, watching the distance. Are we ready? We were always ready, boy, the demon answered. Now it's your turn to show the world what the power of a true carrier means. Naruto nodded. He knew that trials lay ahead that would test everything he had learned, but he was no longer afraid. He was as focused as ever. Rumors of a shadow. Far from the mountains, in the villages neighboring Konoha, rumors began to spread. They talked about a boy with incredible strength who could destroy entire landscapes. People whispered about his anger and that he was heading towards Konoha. In one of these villages, in the market square, two shinobi were discussing the latest news. Did you hear? Asked one, looking around nervously. Uzumaki Naruto. He's coming here. Coming here? The other shinobi frowned. Why does he need it? We didn't do anything to him. Do you think this is important? Muttered the first one. If he decided to destroy Konoha, no one will be safe. The conversations intensified, and soon these rumors reached the ears of the third Hokage. Konoha is getting ready. At the Hokage residence, Hiruzen Sarutobi gathered the elders and squad leaders. The atmosphere was tense. Everyone understood that time to act was running out. We cannot ignore this threat, said one of the elders. If Naruto is really heading our way, we need to be ready. Are you ready? Danzo, standing in the shadows, asked sarcastically. Do you really think that our standard measures will work against the Jubi's power? Hiruzen sighed. He knew that Danzo's words were true, but he couldn't openly admit it in front of the elders. We must try to prevent the fight, Hiruzen said. If Naruto goes to destroy the village, it means we have lost his trust. But maybe we can talk to him. Talking won't stop him, Danzo intervened. The only way to save Konoha is through force. I have already mobilized the route. If he shows up, we'll be ready. First ambush. Meanwhile, on his way to Konoha, Naruto faced his first test. On a narrow path leading through the forest, a squad of Anbu was waiting for him. Their appearance was not a surprise. He could sense their presence from miles away. Naruto Uzumaki, the squad leader said, taking a step forward. You must return to Konoha. Go back? Naruto chuckled, his voice cold. After what you did? No, I didn't come back. I've come to complete what you started. You leave us a choice, said the commander, folding the seals. The battle began with a surprise attack. The Anbu moved with incredible speed. Their attacks were well coordinated, but Naruto was no longer the boy they remembered. His movements were precise, each attack deadly. He activated Rasen Void Storm. His technique tore the forest to pieces. The Anbu tried to use their seals to suppress his chakra, but Naruto became too powerful for their methods to matter. One by one they fell until the commander realized that the battle was lost. You're not leaving us a chance, he whispered before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. One step closer to the goal. When the fight ended, Naruto stood among the destroyed forest. His breathing was heavy, but determination burned in his eyes. This is just the beginning, he said. They think they can stop me, but I will show them how wrong they are. The Yubi spoke, his voice filled with a hint of satisfaction. They are beginning to realize that their end is near. But remember, boy, the real battle is yet to come. Chapter 15, Dark Alliance. Naruto sat on top of a hill, looking out at the lit horizon. In the distance lay Konoha, his home village, but now its image only evoked anger and pain in him. Naruto's gaze was cold and focused. He knew that going into a frontal attack would be madness. Jubi, he said, not taking his eyes off the horizon. A direct attack won't work. They are waiting for me. I feel it. You're learning, boy, the demon replied, his voice both mocking and approving. Strength is not only power, but also strategy. If you want to destroy them, find those who share your distrust of Konoha. Naruto thought about it. He had always acted alone, but now he realized that it would be impossible to destroy such a strong village as Konoha alone. He needed allies, people who saw the dark side of the village just like he did. Search for allies, Naruto set off. He knew that finding like-minded people would not be easy. Most shinobi either obeyed Konoha or feared it, but he also knew that there were those in the world who had experienced the cruelty and betrayal of this village. The first place he went to was the Land of Rain. They said that in this country the most dangerous and desperate shinobi were hiding, having fled from their villages. They had no attachments and were willing to work for the right price. On the streets of one of the villages, Naruto encountered a group of shinobi who were clearly not local. Their gaze was cold and their aura instilled a threat. "Who are you?" asked one of them, a tall man with a scar across his face. "One who seeks allies," Naruto answered without showing any fear. The man chuckled. "Allies?" There was mockery in his voice. "In the world of shinobi, it's every man for himself." "Why should we help you?" "Because I want to destroy Konoha," Naruto replied, his words sounding like a challenge. "And you, I'm sure, have reasons to hate her just as much as I do." These words aroused the interest of the group. They looked at each other, but no one dared to answer right away. Naruto knew he had to show his strength to gain their respect. "Show of force. If you're in doubt," Naruto said as he slowly formed the seals, "I can show you what I can do." With these words, he activated Race and Void Storm. A huge flash of light illuminated the street, and when the dust settled, the ground in front of him was pitted with deep craters. The shinobi who were watching this remained silent. "This is only part of what I can do," Naruto said, removing his hands. "Join me, and you will get a chance not just to survive, but to rule this world." One of the shinobi stepped forward. "Okay," he said, nodding. "You have proven your strength. We will listen." Alliance with Konoha haters. Among those who joined Naruto were a variety of individuals. Fugitives from other villages, mercenaries rejected by their clans, and those who had lost everything due to the wars waged by the great villages, including Konoha. Each of them had their own reasons for hating the system, and Naruto became their leader. He began training them, passing on the knowledge he gained on Myoboku and sharing his strategy. Together, they developed plans aimed at weakening Konoha from the inside. "We'll be stealthy," Naruto explained as he stood in front of the group. "Destroy their connections with other villages, destroy their trust. Konoha must be isolated before we make the final blow." First mission. The new group's first mission was to disrupt the supply of weapons from the Land of Iron that Konoha was counting on. Naruto personally led the operation to show his allies that he was not just a leader, but the strongest warrior among them. They were waiting for the convoy in an ambush on a mountain pass. When the caravan appeared, Naruto gave the signal, and the attack began. The group acted quickly and smoothly, destroying guards and capturing cargo. This was their first victory, and it strengthened their resolve. Chapter 16. Trouble in Konoha. The light of the morning sun filtered through the windows of the Hokage residence. In the silence of his office, Hiruzen Sarutobi sat at his massive wooden desk, studying the report that the scouts had brought. His face was clouded with worry. "Convoy under attack," said one of the ANBU present. "All signs point to this being the work of Naruto Uzumaki." "Naruto!" Hiruzen frowned, looking thoughtfully at the map of the Land of Iron. "He doesn't act alone. This is a planned operation. He has allies." The ANBU captain stepped forward, his voice sounding cautious. "We received information that he is teaming up with fugitives from other villages. His group is growing. If we don't stop him now, the threat to Konoha will become real." Hiruzen sighed heavily. He knew that this situation would not resolve itself. But what worried him even more was not Naruto's strength, but his determination. "He could become the village's greatest protector," he said quietly, "but our mistakes made him an enemy." Council of Elders. A few hours later, Hiruzen gathered the elders in a secret room to discuss a plan of action. Danzo, sitting in the shadows, had his hands clasped on his cane, his voice cold. "I warned you," he said, not hiding his reproach. "Uzumaki has always been a threat. We let him go, and now he is coming back to destroy us." "He hasn't attacked yet," Koharu intervened. "Perhaps there is a way to negotiate with him." "Agree?" Danzo grinned, his gaze becoming icy. "He has already attacked our convoy. This is an act of war. If we don't answer, he will consider us weak." Hiruzen raised his hand for silence. Naruto is no ordinary enemy, he said. His strength is incredible, but his anger and hatred are directed not at the village, but at us. We need to understand what triggered it. This is the only way we can prevent a catastrophe. Danzo frowned. There is only one way to prevent a catastrophe, he said. Destroy him. Naruto and his plans. Meanwhile, Naruto and his allies discussed the next step. They gathered in an old temple hidden deep in the forests. The atmosphere was tense, but everyone present knew that their leader was planning something more. We've taken the first step, Naruto began, his voice sounding confident. The attack on the convoy was just the beginning. Now Konoha knows we're here, but their answer will be predictable. What's next? Asked one of his allies, a woman with long black hair and eyes filled with rage. Should we strike directly at the village? Naruto shook his head. A direct attack would be a mistake, he said. They are waiting for it. We will continue to undermine them from within. We will destroy their economy, their alliances, and their trust. When they are alone, then we will strike. What if they start hunting us? Asked another. It's a matter of time. Let them hunt, Naruto replied, his eyes flashing. They don't know what they're dealing with. Konoha counterattack. In Konoha, Danzo activated his resources. The Root Anbu began gathering information about Naruto's allies. They worked quickly and efficiently, but their task was difficult. Naruto and his group hid so well that even experienced agents could not find any trace of them. We must force him to come out of the shadows, Danzo told his men. Provocation is the best way. Hit his weak points, destroy everything that is dear to him. The ANBU began to act. They sent a squad to one of the villages, where it was assumed that Naruto could look for new allies. Their mission was clear: destroy those who could support him. Allies under threat. When Naruto learned of the attack on the village, his anger reached its peak. He gathered his people and went to the place, but it was too late. The village was destroyed and its inhabitants killed. This is Danzo, said one of his allies, looking at the charred houses. This is his style. He wants to make me act impulsively, Naruto said quietly, his voice shaking with rage. But I won't let him do it. He clenched his fists as his chakra began to vibrate around him. Jubi spoke. You're finally starting to understand, boy. If you want to beat them, you have to be smarter than them. Destroy their plans before they destroy you. Chapter 17. The thin line between revenge and justice. Naruto stood in the center of a destroyed village. The fire was still smoldering in the ruins, and the air was saturated with the smell of grief. His allies surrounded him in tense silence. They saw the anger burning in his eyes, and knew what would follow. We will take revenge, Naruto repeated, his voice as cold as an icy wind. But we will do it on our terms. Konoha learns what it means to lose everything. One of his most trusted companions, a woman with long black hair named Saya, stepped forward. Are you sure this is the right way? She asked. Revenge consumes everything. If we act thoughtlessly, we will become like them. Naruto looked at her, his eyes flashing with the crimson light of the Jubi's chakra. This is not just revenge, Saya, he said. This is justice. They destroyed the lives of innocents. I will show them what it means to live in fear. Destruction strategy. Naruto gathered his men in a hideout hidden deep in the forests. The map in front of him marked the key points of Konoha, places that he planned to destroy in order to deprive the village of its support. Konoha is strong because it has allies, resources, and influence, he began, his voice sounding confident. We'll start by destroying their alliances. If other villages saw that Konoha couldn't even protect its allies, they would turn their backs on it. How exactly do we do this? Asked one of his men, a man with a rough voice. They have strong connections, especially with sand and earth. Naruto chuckled. We will wreak havoc, he replied. Provocations, setups, disinformation. They will begin to suspect each other. We will make them fear not only us, but also each other. He looked at Saya, who continued to watch him doubtfully. Saya, he said, you will lead the operation in the land of sand. They are the weakest of Konoha's allies. Start with their trade routes. Make them think it's Konoha's business. She nodded, although doubt was still visible on her face. First operation, strike the land of sand. Saya and her squad set off. Their goal was the main trade route between the land of fire and the land of sand. They knew that these supplies played a key role in relations between the two countries. At sunset, the group set up an ambush. When the caravan came into their sight, they struck, leaving behind only destroyed carts and symbols pointing to Konoha. It was a clever deception that was intended to create mistrust between countries. They will believe that this is Konoha, Saya said, looking at the destruction. But I still doubt that this is right. Konoha learns of the attack. In Konoha, word of the attack reached Hiruzen. He gathered his advisors to discuss what had happened. This is impossible, said one of the elders. We did not attack the caravans of the land of sand, but now they demand an explanation. This is Naruto's doing, Danzo said coldly. He wants to destroy us from within, using our allies against us. If that is the case, Hiruzen said, frowning, we must act quickly. We cannot allow our alliances to crumble. Danzo chuckled. Alliances? His voice was mocking. Alliances mean nothing if we don't have strength. We must destroy Uzumaki before he destroys us. Naruto plans his next move. Naruto, observing the success of the first operation, began to plan the next strike. He knew that with every destruction of trust between Konoha and its allies, he was getting closer to his goal. We're not just fighting a village, he told his group. We are fighting a system that feeds villages like Konoha. They think they can use people as tools and then throw them away. We will show them that this is not so. His words evoked cheers. The allies saw him as a leader who could change their world. Chapter 18, Plan of Destruction. Deep in the forests, where no light filtered through the thick foliage, Naruto sat at a wooden table littered with maps, scrolls, and notes. His gaze was focused, and his hands quickly moved over the paper, marking key positions. Saya stood behind him. Her face was concentrated, but there was a shadow of doubt in her eyes. Konoha won't be able to defend itself, Naruto repeated without raising his head. Their weaknesses are obvious. War always begins with the destruction of trust. Are you sure this is the only way? Saya asked. Her voice was quiet but firm. We don't just destroy their alliances, we destroy the lives of people who may not be guilty of anything. Naruto stopped, raising his head. His eyes glowed with the crimson light of the Jubi's chakra. Whether they're guilty or not doesn't matter, he said. Konoha never thought about those whose lives they destroyed. I won't stop until they feel the same pain I felt. Saya nodded, but anxiety continued to brew inside her. Goal. Economic blow. Naruto pointed to the map, where a large trade center was marked, serving as a link between Konoha and its allies. The next target will be this city, he said. If we destroy it, Konoha's trade routes will collapse. They will lose access to resources, and their allies will begin to doubt their ability to protect their interests. One of his allies, a man with a thick beard named Ren, stepped forward. This city is well guarded, he said. There are a lot of shinobi there, and Konoha has probably beefed up security after our recent attacks. Naruto chuckled. That's why we won't attack head-on, he said. We use deception. Let's make their shinobi believe that the threat comes from within. Saya frowned. Deception? She asked. Are you planning to sow panic among civilians? Panic is a weapon, Naruto answered. When people are afraid, they make mistakes. We use this. Operation in the city. A few days later, Naruto's group arrived in the city. It was a busy place, filled with merchants, shinobi, and ordinary citizens. Naruto and his allies began to act secretly. They spread rumors of an impending attack, creating an atmosphere of fear. I see people starting to worry, Ren whispered, watching the crowd in the market. It works. But that's not enough, Naruto said. We have to strike a real blow. Late at night, they staged a small sabotage. One of the warehouses containing goods was set on fire, and signs indicating the country of Earth, one of Konoha's allies, were left at the site. This should have created even greater mistrust. Konoha's response. At the Hokage residence, Hiruzen Sarutobi listened to a report on what happened in the city. His face was clouded with worry. This is not just an accident, he said. It's part of Naruto's plan. He wants to wreak havoc. He's acting too smart, added one of the advisors. We can't predict his next move. We must act quickly, Danzo intervened, his voice sounding like a hammer blow. If we let him continue, he will destroy our village from the inside. I suggest using the route to eliminate his allies. Hiruzen shook his head. Killing will only lead to more bloodshed, he said. We must try to reach Naruto and understand why he chose this path. He chose him because we made him that way, Danzo answered coldly. Now he is our enemy. Breaking alliances. In the land of Earth, upon receiving news of an attack on a warehouse, the local daimyo began to doubt Konoha's sincerity. His advisors speculated that Konoha might be setting them up to weaken their position. We can't trust them, said one of the advisors. If Konoha can't even protect their trade routes, they won't protect us either. These doubts played into Naruto's hands. His strategy was working, and he knew that Konoha was becoming more isolated every day. Chapter 19. Thin Thread of Trust. Late night shrouded the forest in dense darkness, through which even sounds did not break through. There was tense silence in Naruto's hideout. The light of a dim lantern illuminated the map on which he was making notes. His voice was quiet, but every phrase sounded like a hammer blow. One more step, Naruto repeated, his gaze focused. One more blow, and their alliances will begin to collapse like a house of cards. Saya stood nearby, her face thoughtful. She saw Naruto's determination turn into something more than just a desire for revenge. He became a strategist, a leader whose actions could change the balance of power throughout the world. What will be the next step? She asked. Her voice was even, but there was a hint of doubt in it. Naruto pointed to one of the points on the map. The Land of Iron, he said. Their neutrality is the key to the stability of the region. If we make them doubt Konoha, it will be disastrous for the village. Operation in the Land of Iron. The next morning, Naruto and his allies began preparing for the mission. Their goal was simple, to sow distrust between the Land of Iron and Konoha. To do this, they planned to stage an attack that was supposed to look like an attack from Konoha. We must act quickly and cleanly, Naruto explained to his team. The Land of Iron does not forgive mistakes. If they suspect us, it will all be in vain. Ren, standing nearby, nodded. We will leave signs indicating Konoha's involvement. But what if they start investigating? They won't make it, Naruto answered confidently. We will create chaos that will distract their attention. Attack on a samurai caravan? At night, Naruto's group ambushed one of the caravans from the Land of Iron. This was a small detachment of samurai guarding an important cargo of weapons. Their mission was simple: seize the cargo and leave behind evidence pointing to Konoha's involvement. As the caravan entered a narrow mountain pass, Naruto gave a signal. A flash of chakra tore through the night, and the battle began. The samurai fought valiantly, but the might of Naruto's group proved irresistible. After the fight, they left behind several kunai with Konoha symbols and set the cargo on fire. The fire lit up the night, creating the illusion that this was a deliberate attack. Reaction from the Land of Iron. In the capital of the Country of Iron, the attack caused a storm of discussion. The samurai leader, Mifune, studied the reports carefully. His face was concentrated, but his eyes showed tension. Was it Konoha? Asked one of his advisors. That remains to be seen, Mifune replied. But if they really dared to attack us, it would be a violation of their promises. We cannot let this go unanswered. The advisors looked at each other, their faces expressing doubt. Mifune was known for his fairness, but even he realized that the situation was difficult. Konoha under pressure. At this time in Konoha, Hiruzen Sarutobi received news of an attack on the caravan of the Country of Iron. His hands shook as he read the report. This is impossible, he said, turning to his advisors. We have nothing to do with this. But we have an enemy who wants everyone to think differently, Danzo intervened. Naruto continues to play on our weaknesses. If we don't stop him, this will only be the beginning. Hiruzen sighed. He knew that Naruto acted wisely. His every action was carefully planned to undermine trust in Konoha. We have to explain everything to Mifune, Hiruzen said. If we lose the trust of the Land of Iron, it could destroy us. Conversation with Saya. In the hideout, Naruto stood on a cliff, looking up at the stars. Saya walked up to him, her face worried. Naruto, she said quietly, are you sure we're on the right track? The more we act, the more people suffer. How many suffered because of Konoha? Naruto replied sharply, turning to her. This is not the path of destruction, Saya. This is the way to fix it. I'm creating a world where villages like Konoha can no longer dictate their own rules. But at what cost? She asked. We become what we fight. Naruto fell silent. Her words hurt him, but he brushed aside his doubts. He had a goal and could not afford to hesitate. Chapter 20. Wrath in the Shadows. The night was darker than ever, and only distant stars illuminated the horizon. Naruto stood at the top of the hill, his fists clenched tightly, and his eyes glowing with the crimson light of the Jubi's chakra. His determination became unshakable, and his plan became clear. We're on the right track, he said, his voice sounding confident. They can't stop us. We will show them what it means to live in fear. Saya stood behind him watching this. Her eyes were full of doubts, but she did not dare to object. She understood that Naruto had long since crossed the line where he could have turned back. Are you planning your next goal? She asked quietly. Yes, Naruto answered without even turning around. With the next blow, we will completely destroy their self-confidence. New objective, strategic weakening. At the hideout, Naruto gathered his allies. The map laid out in front of them was covered in markings and markings. He pointed to one of the points, a small village near Konoha that served as the main supply point. This is the key point, Naruto explained. All the main resources of Konoha pass through it. If we destroy it, the village will lose access to food and ammunition. Ren, standing nearby, frowned. This will cause panic not only in Konoha, but also among its allies, he said. They will begin to doubt the village's ability to defend even its own borders. Exactly, Naruto confirmed. We will not attack the village head-on. Instead, we will cut off their supply routes. They will lose control of the situation. Saya intervened again. Naruto, what will happen to the residents of this village? Will they simply become victims of our plan? Naruto turned around, his gaze cold. They are already victims, he said. Konoha uses them to maintain its power. We will only show them the truth. Operation Supply Strike. Naruto and his group split into teams. The first was to take positions along the main supply routes, and the second was to create sabotage in the village itself. At night, they began to act. Ren's group blew up the bridge through which all the main food caravans passed. At the same time, Seiya and her people set fire to several warehouses in the village. The fire engulfed the buildings, lighting up the dark sky. "We did it," Ren said, observing the destruction. "They won't be able to quickly restore this route." "This is just the beginning," Naruto replied, standing to the side and watching the chaos. "Konoha must understand that their every move is predictable. We will always be one step ahead." Konoha's response. In Konoha, news of the attack on the village reached Hiruzen Sarutobi. He sat at his desk, his face clouded. "They struck again," said one of the ANBUs standing in front of him. "This time they cut off our supply routes. This will deal a serious blow to our defense capabilities." "This is Naruto," Hiruzen said quietly. "He knows our weaknesses, and he uses them against us." Danzo, standing in the corner of the room, stepped forward. "We can't wait any longer," he said. "He is using tactics that will destroy us from the inside. We need to act tougher." "And what do you propose?" Hiruzen asked. "We will hit his allies," Danzo answered coldly. "We will destroy those who help him. Without them, he will be alone, and then we can finish him off." Hiruzen sighed, feeling the weight of these decisions. Difficulties within the Naruto group. At Naruto's hideout, his men were discussing the consequences of their latest operation. Ren was pleased with the success, but Saya continued to have doubts. "Naruto," she said, walking up to him, "don't you see that this is becoming more and more dangerous? People suffer, and Konoha only strengthens its resolve." "It's part of the plan," Naruto replied, his voice calm. "They must feel like they are losing everything before we strike the final blow." Saya shook her head. "What if we become just like them?" she asked. "What if we lose ourselves in this process?" Naruto didn't answer right away. Her words hurt him, but he brushed aside his doubts. His goal was clear, and he could not afford to be weak. Chapter 21. The Final Stage. The dim light of the torches illuminated Naruto's hideout. The map of Konoha was covered in markings, with red lines crossing key routes and strategic sites. Naruto stood in front of his allies, his gaze firm and his voice sounding confident. "We are nearing the end," he said, his eyes glowing with the crimson light of the Jubi's chakra. "It won't be long before they realize that their time is past." Saya, standing nearby, looked thoughtfully at the map. She knew Naruto was right. His tactics undermined the foundations of Konoha, but she was worried about the consequences. "What's next, Naruto?" she asked. "What's our next step?" Naruto pointed to the central point of the map, Konoha. "We will prepare the way for the final blow," he said, "but first we need to deprive them of their last line of defense. We need to destroy their belief in their own strength." Plan of attack on the elite. Naruto turned to his men, their gazes fixed on him. In their eyes, one could see faith in a leader who could unite them into one powerful force. "Their elite will be the next target," he began. "Anbu. They consider themselves inviolable. They think they can protect the village from any threat. We will show them that this is not so." Ren frowned. "Anbu are not just troops. These are the best of the best. We will face serious resistance. That's why we won't act head-on," Naruto explained. "We use cunning. We will make them believe that the threat comes from within. They will destroy themselves. Infiltration and deception." The next morning, Naruto and his allies began their operation. They headed to one of the ANBU's secret facilities, hidden in the forests near Konoha. Saya and her team took on the task of implementation. Saya changed into an ANBU uniform using the knowledge she gained from Konoha deserters. Her task was simple: infiltrate and leave behind evidence pointing to internal treason. She moved quickly but carefully, trying not to attract too much attention. When she completed the task, Naruto's team created a small diversion to attract the attention of the ANBU. Explosions shook the forest, forcing them to rush to the scene. In the chaos, they found clues left by Saya and began to suspect each other. Destruction from within. Unrest began in Konoha. The ANBU, whose trust was key to the village's defense, began to suspect each other. The evidence Naruto left behind was too convincing. "That's impossible," said one of the ANBU commanders. "We would never betray the village." "What if one of us did it?" answered the other. "If the enemy has infiltrated someone, we must identify him." These doubts led to internal conflicts that began to weaken the village's defenses. Hokage's response. Hiruzen Sarutobi listened intently to reports of increasing tensions within the ANBU. His face was clouded with worry. "That's Naruto's job," he said. "He knows that destruction from within is much more effective than any external attack." "We have to find him and stop him," Danzo intervened. "At any cost." "At any cost?" Hiruzen frowned. "We've already made enough mistakes. If we act as cruelly as he did, we will lose what makes us Konoha. And if we don't do anything, we'll lose everything," Danzo answered sharply. Preparing for the final blow. In the hideout, Naruto watched the results of his operation. He saw how the internal instability of the ANBU undermined Konoha's defenses. "It works," Ren said, looking at the cards. "They are already starting to fall apart. We have to be ready, Naruto said, his voice firm. The final blow will be difficult, but if we succeed, Konoha will fall. Saya looked at Naruto, her face thoughtful. Are you sure this is right? She asked quietly. Destroy everything we once protected? Naruto turned to her, his eyes blazing with determination. Konoha betrayed us, he replied. Now they have to feel what it's like to lose everything. Chapter 22. Awakening of the Yubi. Dark night covered the forest, as if foreshadowing an approaching storm. There was tension in Naruto's hideout. His eyes, burning with a scarlet light, seemed to burn through the surrounding space. Chakra raged inside him, so powerful that even his allies felt its pressure. They think they can stop me, Naruto said quietly, his voice icy. But they don't understand what they're dealing with. The Jubi, who had been silent until then, spoke with a resonance that echoed in Naruto's mind. You've reached your limit, boy. If you want to crush them, you must accept all my power. No restrictions. Without fear. Naruto closed his eyes, his breathing becoming slow and deep. He felt the Jubi's chakra, dormant deep within him, begin to awaken. I'm ready, he whispered. Show me what real strength means. Awakening full power, streams of chakra began to burst out of Naruto's body. They surrounded him, creating a bright light that illuminated the forest. The nearby allies retreated, watching in awe. What is he doing? Asked one of them, his voice full of fear. This is his true power, Saya replied, her face tense. She felt the air around her filled with incredible power. Naruto opened his eyes. They shone brighter than ever, and his body was enveloped in a dense aura of the Jubi's chakra. Her energy was so intense that the ground under his feet began to crack. Now, he said, his voice sounding in unison with Yubi's, I will be the one who destroys everything they have created. Test of strength. Naruto raised his hand and a concentrated ball of chakra began to form in his palm. This was not just a Rasengan, it was something more. Its power was so great that the trees around began to break under its pressure. This is just the beginning, Yubi said, his voice calm but menacing. Use this to show them what real fear is. Naruto sent a ball of chakra towards a hill that was several hundred meters away. When the attack reached its target, the entire hill exploded into a cloud of dust and debris. The explosion was so powerful that it was echoed even in Konoha. Konoha's reaction. In Konoha, Hiruzen Sarutobi stood on the roof of the residence, watching a strange flash on the horizon. He felt the air fill with alien, ominous chakra. It's Naruto, he said, his voice filled with worry. He awakened the Jubi's full power. If he uses this power, the village will be destroyed, said one of the advisors. We have to stop him, Danzo intervened. If he continues, he will destroy not only Konoha, but the entire world. Hiruzen shook his head. We realized too late what we had done, he said. Now we can only wait and hope that we can find a way to reach him. Difficulties within the Naruto group. At the hideout, Naruto's allies watched his transformation with concern. Saya, whose faith in his plan was beginning to waver, stepped closer. Naruto, she said, her voice filled with worry. Do you really want to use this power? It can destroy everything, even us. Naruto looked at her, his gaze cold. If this is what is needed to achieve our goal, I will do it, he replied. I won't stop until Konoha falls. Chapter 23. Step to Destruction. Naruto's chakra pulsated like a living being, filling the entire space around him. Its pressure was so strong that even the nearest trees began to bend under the invisible weight. His allies, standing aside, watched in awe. This is incredible, Ren whispered, looking at Naruto. He became something more than a man. Saya, despite her determination to stay by Naruto's side, felt her inner fears begin to intensify. Naruto, she called, taking a step forward. If you use this power, you can destroy not only Konoha, but everything around it. Are you sure you're ready for this? Naruto looked at her. His eyes, glowing with a scarlet light, seemed emotionless. I was ready for this from the very beginning, he answered coldly. If the world is to change, the old order must first be destroyed. The first step to destruction, Naruto directed his power towards a small village near Konoha. This was a place used as one of the village's supply points. His goal was clear, to deprive Konoha of its support, destroying everything connected to its survival. His attack was fast and destructive. He waved his hand and a huge stream of chakra rained down on the village. Buildings began to collapse and the ground beneath them was torn apart. Panic and chaos gripped the residents, who did not understand what was happening. This is just the beginning, Naruto said as he watched the destruction. They need to feel vulnerable. Konoha's reaction. In Konoha, Hiruzen Sarutobi received news of the destruction of the village. His face darkened as he realized this was Naruto's doing. This is not just an attack, he told his advisors. This is a statement. Naruto is no longer hiding. He wants us to know that he is coming for us. Danzo, standing to the side, chuckled. I warned you, he said. We missed him, and now he has become a threat that cannot be ignored. We must try to reach him, one of the advisors intervened. Perhaps there is still a chance to convince him to stop. Convince? Danzo responded mockingly. This is no longer possible. The only way to stop it is to destroy it. Difficulties within the group? At Naruto's hideout, his allies began to discuss the consequences of their latest attack. Some of them began to doubt whether they had chosen the right path. This is no longer a fight for justice, said one of them. We are turning into monsters. Saya tried to talk to Naruto, but he was adamant. I warned you from the very beginning, he said, his voice firm. This is not a path for the weak. When in doubt, walk away, but I won't stop. Climax, Naruto calls Konoha. After destroying several supply points, Naruto decided to take the next step. He climbed a high cliff facing Konoha and released his chakra, creating a giant pillar of light visible for kilometers. Konoha! He shouted, his voice echoing throughout the area. I'm coming for you. Prepare to face the end of your world. Chapter 24. Shadows Before the Storm. Hiruzen Sarutobi stood on the roof of the Hokage residence, his gaze fixed on the huge pillar of light that illuminated the horizon. His face expressed anxiety and deep regret. She still did not dare to speak out. Naruto, she said quietly, do you really want to destroy them completely? This leaves no way back. He turned to her, his eyes glowing crimson. They left me no choice, he replied. They destroyed everything I loved. Now I will destroy them. Konoha counterattack. In Konoha, despite the fear, preparations for defense began. Hiruzen gave the order to gather all the remaining strongest shinobi of the village to meet the threat. We must protect the village at all costs, he said, even if it costs us our lives. We can't stop him if he uses the full power of the Jubi, said one of the ANBU commanders, but perhaps we can buy time to evacuate the residents. Danzo, on the other hand, proposed a more radical approach. We must destroy his allies, he said. Without them, he will be left alone. This is our only chance. First encounter. As Naruto and his group approached the Konoha border, they were met by ANBU forces. The battle began immediately. Naruto's chakra, enhanced by the Jubi, crushed everything in its path. His allies fought alongside him, but even they felt fear of his power. They don't understand that their end is near, Naruto said, destroying another enemy. Saya, watching his actions, felt growing anxiety. She saw Naruto's anger become uncontrollable. The night in Konoha was torn apart by the sounds of alarm. Security bells rang nonstop, urging residents to take cover. Shinobi rushed through the streets, trying to organize a defense, but fear was visible in their eyes. In the distance, outside the village, the sky was torn apart by the glow of the Yubi's chakra. It was a sign of imminent disaster. What should we do? The residents shouted, taking refuge in their houses. The Hokage must protect us! Children clung to their parents, and old people said prayers. People hoped that the village, which had survived so many battles, would be able to survive this threat. But none of them could imagine that the enemy would become the one they once called one of their own. Hiruzen's reaction. At the Hokage residence, Hiruzen Sarutobi stood in front of a map of the village, surrounded by his advisors. His face expressed deep concern. He had seen many threats over the years, but this was different. Naruto had the power to destroy everything. People are panicking, said one of the ANBU. They are begging for salvation. But what can we do? We must act wisely, Hiruzen replied. If we just defend, we will lose. Naruto is too strong. We only have one chance, Danzo intervened, standing to the side. We must destroy him before he deals the final blow. If we wait, he will destroy everything. Hiruzen frowned, his heart breaking. He understood that every moment of delay brought the village closer to destruction. We'll try to reach him, he said. If there is even the slightest chance that he will listen to us, we must try. Final preparations. The shinobi remaining in the village were gathering in the square. Their views were full of determination, but many understood that this battle could be the last. We must protect the village, Kakashi said, standing in front of the squad. Naruto is strong, but we can't let him destroy everything we've built. Among those gathered was Sakura. Her eyes were full of tears, but she tried to hold on. Naruto, she whispered. Why did it have to end like this? Naruto offensive. On the approaches to the village, Naruto stopped. His chakra continued to pulsate, illuminating everything around him. His allies stood behind, ready for the final blow. They are begging for salvation, the Jubi said in his mind. But no one will come. You are their end. Naruto raised his hand, concentrating all his power into a huge ball of chakra that hung above him like a small sun. They need to understand what they have done, he said. This is their punishment. Village prayers? At this time, residents of Konoha gathered in temples and on the streets, praying for salvation. They hoped that a miracle would stop the destruction. The Hokage will protect us, said one of the old men. He never let us down. But deep down, each of them knew that this threat was greater than anything the village had faced before. Chapter 26. New Order. Naruto stood at the top of the hill, his gaze fixed on the village that was once his home. The fire of the Jubi's chakra that engulfed his body pulsed like the breath of the world itself. The words of the Jubi sounded in his head, burning his mind. They built this world on lies and suffering. Destroy their base. Erase their trace from the face of the earth. Only then will you be able to create something new. I know, Naruto answered quietly, his voice sounding like thunder. Konoha must disappear for a new order to emerge. This is the end. I will wipe you from the face of the earth and build a new world on your ruins. With these words, he directed his attack on the village. A stream of energy tore through the ground, hitting the walls of Konoha. The explosion was so powerful that its echo echoed throughout the forest. Panic in the village. Konoha was in chaos. People ran through the streets trying to find shelter. The shinobi fought through fire and destruction, trying to minimize losses. It's Naruto, one of the shinobi shouted. We have to stop him. How? Shouted another. He became a monster! In the village square, Hiruzen gathered his best shinobi. We can't give up, he said, his voice full of determination. Even if it costs us our lives, we will protect the village. Naruto versus the village. Naruto entered the village surrounded by his chakra. Every step he took left a trail of destruction. The Konoha shinobi tried to stop him, but their attacks were useless. Its power was greater than anything they had ever encountered. Are you trying to protect this place? He asked, destroying another group of enemies. Don't you understand that it's already dead? Chapter 27. The Path to a New World. The fire of the fire reflected in Naruto's scarlet eyes, like a memory of his past, full of pain and betrayal. The wind carried the smell of smoke and destruction. The village that had once been his home was now in ruins, but there was not a drop of regret in his heart. This is just the beginning, he said, his voice quiet but full of determination. On these ruins, I will build a world where there will be no more suffering. His allies stood behind, watching him. Some of them looked with admiration, others with alarm. Saya, looking at Naruto, felt her doubts intensify. Naruto, she said, taking a step forward, you destroyed everything, but what next? How are you going to build something better from these ruins? He turned to her, his gaze calm but firm. I will create a world where no one will suffer anymore because of injustice and lies, he answered. But to do this, I must destroy the old order. Survivor resistance. Deep in the ruined village, the remaining Konoha shinobi gathered on the outskirts. Among them were Kakashi, Guy, Sakura, and other survivors. They looked at the burning ruins, but there was a fire of determination in their eyes. We can't just stand by and watch, Kakashi said, his voice full of determination. Naruto is strong, but he is not invincible. We must find a way to stop him. He's too strong, Guy intervened. Even if we join forces, we cannot defeat him in a frontal attack. Sakura, holding a bloody bandage in her hands, tried to hide her tears. Naruto, Why did you come to this? She whispered. Awakening a new force. Naruto stood on the ruins of the Hokage residence, looking at the starry sky. A power boiled inside him that he had never experienced before. The Jubi spoke in his mind. You're on the right track, boy. But this is not the end. Your true destiny is to change not only Konoha, but the entire world. I know, Naruto replied. This is just the beginning. His chakra began to change, becoming even more dense and powerful. The ground under his feet began to crack, and the air around him began to vibrate. New world plan. Naruto turned to his allies. Now that Konoha is destroyed, we must move on. The rest of the great villages must see that their time has passed too. We will show them that their system no longer works. Ren, one of his loyal followers, stepped forward. But how can we resist them all? He asked. Even with your strength, it might be too dangerous. We won't act alone, Naruto replied. We will find those who are ready to join our cause. This world is full of those who have suffered from lies and betrayal. They will become our new army. Chapter 28, A New Dawn. The sun slowly rose on the horizon, painting the sky in warm golden shades. But for Konoha, this dawn did not bring hope. The destroyed village lay in ruins, and smoke from the fires still rose to the sky. Naruto stood at the top of the destroyed tower, his figure clearly silhouetted against the brightening horizon. His hand was raised as if he were welcoming the new world he was about to build. This is a new dawn, he said, his voice echoing through the empty streets. The world will no longer be the same. Consequences of destruction. The surviving residents and shinobi began to gather on the outskirts of the village. Panic, fear, and despair were still in the air. Among them was Sakura, who was helping the wounded, and Kakashi, who was organizing the remaining shinobi for evacuation. We've lost so much, Kakashi said, his voice muffled. But this is not the end. We must survive to rebuild the village. Sakura looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. How will we restore it without Naruto? She asked. He was our hope. And now he destroyed everything. Kakashi sighed, but his gaze remained firm. If we can't get him back, he said, then we have to stop him, even if it costs us our lives. Naruto's plans. Naruto returned to his hideout where his allies awaited further instructions. The fire of determination burned in his eyes, and the Jubi's chakra still pulsated around him. Konoha has fallen, he said, looking at his team. But this is just the beginning. The great villages must see that their time has passed. We will go to them to show them that their system no longer works. Ren nodded, but Seiya, standing nearby, could not hide her concern. Naruto, she said, her voice quiet but determined. You destroyed Konoha, but what next? How are you going to build a new world from the ruins? Naruto looked at her. His gaze was cold, but there was weariness in it. I will create a world where no one will suffer anymore, he answered. A world where everyone will have equal chances. But for this to happen, the old order must disappear. Survivor resistance. On the outskirts of the village, the remaining Konoha shinobi began to organize resistance. Hiruzen Sarutobi, despite his age, stood in the center of the group, his gaze full of determination. Naruto thinks he destroyed us, he said, but he underestimates our spirit. We will survive. We will rebuild the village, and we will stop him. Kakashi stepped forward. We still have resources and people, he said. We can organize an evacuation and strengthen our positions. But in order to defeat Naruto, we need a new strategy. Hiruzen nodded. We need to understand what motivates him, he said. If we can get through to him, maybe we'll have a chance. Chapter 29, Flame of the New World. Naruto stood on the border of the destroyed Konoha. His eyes, burning with the crimson light of the Jubi's chakra, looked at the horizon where other great villages were hidden. Behind him, the crackle of fire could be heard, consuming the remains of the village, but he didn't turn around. He has already stepped beyond the past, leaving everything behind. This world is broken, he said, clenching his fist, his voice sounding like thunder. But I will make it better, even if it means burning everything to the ground. Allies doubt. His allies standing behind looked at each other. There was concern in their eyes. Even the most loyal began to wonder where Naruto was leading them. Are we really going the right way? Ren asked quietly, turning to Saya. He talks about a new world, but all I see is destruction. Saya looked at Naruto. His strength could not be denied, but in his gaze, she saw something more than determination. It was something frightening. I don't know, she answered, her voice trembling, but we have to be careful. If he loses control, no one can stop him. The first steps of the new order. Naruto turned to his allies. We will go to the next villages, he said. They must see that their time has passed. We will show them that their strength means nothing in the face of real power. Ren stepped forward. And what will happen to the inhabitants of these villages? He asked. Are you going to destroy them like Konoha? Naruto looked at him, his gaze cold. If it is necessary to create a new world, he answered. No one will be saved from change. Resistance plans. Meanwhile, in a devastated Konoha, Hiruzen Sarutobi and his remaining allies began planning their next move. They knew Naruto wouldn't stop, and they didn't have much time. We must warn the other villages, Hiruzen said, his voice decisive. If they realize that Naruto threatens not only us, but the whole world, they will unite. But what if he attacks first? Kakashi asked. We don't have enough strength to hold him back. We won't hold back, Hiruzen replied. We will look for a way to understand it. There might still be a chance to reach Naruto. First attack. Naruto and his allies began moving towards their next goal, the Land of Wind. Suna Village, an ally of Konoha, was known for its strategic importance. If Naruto destroys it, it will cause a serious blow to the rest of the villages. As they approached the border, they were met by a group of Suna shinobi. They were ready to fight, but did not know what they were up against. This is Naruto Uzumaki, one of them said, his voice trembling. He destroyed Konoha! We are not afraid of him, answered the other. We will protect our village. But their confidence was short-lived. Naruto, surrounded by the Yubi's chakra, took one step forward. Its power made the ground tremble and the air filled with tension. You have a choice, he said, his voice sounding like a lightning strike. Join me or disappear. Chapter 30. Desert Fire. The glow of Naruto's chakra burst through the darkness of the night sky, reflecting off the sand dunes of the Land of Wind. His allies stood behind him, ready to follow their leader in any direction despite the doubts that began to seep into their hearts. In front of them, on the border of Suna, stood the shinobi of the Sand Village. Their faces were full of determination, but there was fear in their eyes. A new world begins here, Naruto repeated, his voice as hard as stone, and no one can stop its creation. Confrontation at the borders. The Suna shinobi, led by Baki, stood in a fighting stance, ready to defend. Uzumaki Naruto, Baki said loudly, his voice echoing across the desert plain. We know what you did to Konoha, but you won't find an easy victory here. Suna will defend herself to the last. Naruto stepped forward, his chakra flaring brighter. Each step he took left deep footprints in the sand, and the wind became hotter and more violent. Defend yourself? He grinned. I didn't come for negotiations. Your time is up. You will either join me or disappear, just like Konoha. First strike. The battle began with a lightning strike. The Suna shinobi attacked in unison, using their wind and sand techniques to surround Naruto and his allies. But their efforts seemed futile. Each of their blows was absorbed by the power of the Jubi's chakra, which surrounded Naruto like a shield. Too weak, he said, raising his hand. A concentrated ball of chakra appeared in his palm, then was thrown with force towards the enemy. The explosion destroyed the sand dune, throwing the Suna shinobi in different directions. The sand rose in a cloud, blocking the light of the moon, and for a moment everything plunged into chaos. Suna resistance. Baki and his remaining fighters regrouped after the attack. They realized that conventional methods would not work. We can't just fight him, Baki told his men. We need to buy time to call for reinforcements. But Naruto didn't give them that opportunity. His attacks became more and more powerful, and each explosion destroyed their ranks. No one will come to the rescue, he said, clenching his fist. Your world has already ended. Saya begins to doubt. Saya, watching the battle from behind Naruto, could not hide her horror. She saw how he turned the sandy plain into a field of destruction, leaving no chance of salvation. Naruto, that's enough, she whispered. You're not just destroying villages. You are destroying everything that is left of ourselves. But Naruto didn't listen. His attention was focused on the next blow, which should erase the remaining resistance. Reinforcements from Suna. When it seemed that all was lost, a whirlwind of sand appeared from afar. It was Gaara, Kazekage of Suna. His presence immediately changed the course of the battle. His technique, combined with the protective power of the sand, was able to temporarily hold back Naruto's attacks. Uzumaki Naruto, Gaara said loudly, his voice calm but firm. I won't let you destroy my home. Naruto looked at him, his eyes narrowed. You don't understand, he replied. I don't want to destroy your house. I want to destroy the old world to build a new one. Chapter 31. Battle of Two Worlds. Whirlwinds of sand and the Yubi's chakra raged across the desert plain. The ground cracked underfoot, and the air was filled with tension. Naruto stood surrounded by his power, his crimson eyes glaring at the figure of Gaara, who confronted him with unwavering determination. This world needs to change, Naruto repeated, clenching his fist, and I will be the one who changes it. Gaara answered him in a cold but firm voice. You try to change the world through destruction, but you only destroy yourself. If you want to destroy everything, I won't let you go any further. Clash of elements. Gaara raised his hand, and a huge stream of sand swirled around him, turning into a giant barrier. He knew that Naruto could not be defeated by normal methods, so he used all his strength to hold back the destructive power of the Ten Tails. Your defense is nothing compared to my strength, Naruto said, channeling his chakra into his hand. A flash of light blinded everyone, and then there was an explosion. A stream of energy hit Gaara's barrier, creating cracks. Gaara strengthened the barrier, but Naruto was already moving forward, creating a huge ball of chakra. Every step he took destroyed the ground, bringing him closer to his opponent. You don't understand, Naruto said. The old world must disappear. This is the only way we can create something better. Suna resistance. The Suna shinobi, gathered under Gaara's command, rushed into battle. They used their wind and sand techniques to support their Kazekage, but Naruto's strength was too great. His chakra absorbed attacks, turning them into useless flares. They're just wasting time, the Jubi said in Naruto's mind. Your victory is inevitable. They won't be able to resist you. They don't understand that they are not fighting for survival but for the end, Naruto answered. Saya tries to intervene. Saya, watching the battle, could no longer hold back. She stepped forward, moving closer to Naruto. Naruto, stop, she shouted. You become just like those you fight. If you continue, you will not only destroy them, but also yourself. Naruto turned to her, his eyes flashing with rage. I do what I have to do, he replied. You don't understand, Saya. The old world must be erased so that a new one can be born. Her words delayed him for a moment, but his resolve remained unchanged. Final attack. Gaara, gathering all his strength, created a giant hand made of sand, which rushed towards Naruto. But Naruto, surrounded by the Jubi's chakra, repelled the attack, causing a powerful explosion. This is the end, Naruto said, raising his hand. A huge ball of chakra began to form above him, shining like a second sun. I will wipe out your village like I wiped out Konoha. A new world begins here. Gaara rose to his feet, breathing heavily. His voice was full of determination. If you want to destroy everything, you must go through me. A hint of the future. Naruto's chakra ball glowed brighter, filling the skies. At that moment, the whole world seemed to freeze in anticipation. Gaara stood in front of him, ready to face his fate, but a shadow of doubt flashed in Naruto's eyes. Can this world be changed without destruction? He whispered barely audibly, but immediately threw away these thoughts. There is no turning back, Naruto said, and the light of the ball illuminated the desert.